And those 10 most important words is, if it is to be, it's up to me. That's what it's all about. It's about each one of us. So we're blessed to be here in this atmosphere of love, and I'm glad we've got a group. Yeah, as you know, I like a group. Last week, we celebrated a decoration, an announcement on July 4th. It was an announcement that came 237 years ago, that it was a declaration that pronounced a universal principle that applies to each one of us. And what I like about that is we celebrated a declaration, we celebrated a statement, an affirmation, but we didn't celebrate our freedom. We hear that, oh wow, 1776 we gained our freedom. Baloney. We did not gain our freedom in 1776, because we gained our freedom the day we were born. Because this idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness applies to each one of us as incarnated spiritual beings, where we innately enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You see the difference there? So what we're celebrating is that which we already are and that which we already have. Now, embodied with all that is what we call spiritual freedoms. Because when we're talking about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, what does it do? It personalizes us. It makes it very personal if we're going to experience freedom, true freedom. And this is where spiritual freedom comes in. And what it means is that we all have the right to be all that we can be every moment of the day. That we can be 100% of that which we are. And what are we? Spiritual beings. Spiritual beings occupying bodies. And it brings a little emotion into my life. And the reason it does is this, because it points out that, Angela, if you're going to really experience freedom, then you need to get a handle on what your true identity is. I'm going to have to embrace that which I am 100% of the time. You agree with this? And so when we start looking at this, it is so personal to me. But here's the idea of spiritual freedom. Sure, we have the right to be all that we can be every moment of the time, which means that we recognize that we are eternal, creative, spiritual beings, that we are tremendous creators, but we're not absorbed by our creation. I think this month is about that idea of absorption. Because we're not only free to be all that we can be, we're also free to be less than we can be. Do you agree with this? Yes, we are free to be less than we can be. Now, a kind of interesting thing happened to me several weeks ago. This guy calls me, he leaves a message on the Emerson phone. And he says, I'm interested in your international programs, your education programs, and my number is such and such. And that was the message. So I call him back. And a message comes on. Hello, this is George, a fictitious name. This is George from New Jersey. And I'm sorry I'm not here at the moment, so I cannot take your call. However, leave your phone and your number, your phone number and your name, and I'll return your call as soon as possible. You've had this happen, haven't you? So I immediately say, this is Angie Pizelo from Emerson Institute, returning your call, and I didn't hardly get that out of my mouth when he comes on the line. He says, oh, hi, Dr. Pizelo. This is George. I'm screening all my calls because there are people that I don't want to deal with on the phone. And you know, Angela can get very judgmental, I'm sorry, because I'm not supposed to be like that. And so my judgment kicks in. I say, what a wimp this guy is. I'm going to hang up on him. Now, I know maybe some of you, and maybe I have done this in the past, I don't know. But the idea is, doesn't he have the courage to say, Myrtle, you've called me a dozen times, I don't want to take your call anymore, don't call me again. It's as simple as that. Now, is this guy exercising being all that he can be? No. He's in prison at his own house. He's put himself into a prison because he's fearful of answering the phone. A woman, Zen master, which Zona was her name, she had a special way to encourage people to really stay focused in that which we are, to stay centered. We call it staying centered in truth. And it was a very simple thing. And she advised everybody to do this. She said, because if we're going to be all that we can possibly be, then we need to shift. We need to shift our consciousness from anxiety to gratitude. And she was all about gratitude. And she says it's a very simple thing. She said, all I want you to do is say it several times a day. And just repeat this. Thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. That was all. She had thousands of people coming to her. And there were tremendous healings. People who were emotionally distressed. People who had financial problems. Relationship problems. All of it. They all started practicing. Thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. Can we say that? Let's try it. Thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. What she was doing was helping people to transcend the idea of being absorbed by what's going on. To realize that everything that's happening to us is our greater good. I don't know if we can accept that, because there's some terrible things that happened that we read about. Just yesterday, the airplane crash. Terrible things happening out there. But what this does for the people, it helps them to allow their conditioned mind not to get upset when David's phone goes off. To realize that that was a blessing for us, right? Because those of you who were asleep, you're awake now. But it helps us to not be it was planned, I'd say David had your phone go off. It helps us not to be absorbed by what's going on and be less than what we can be. That's what that's all about. And what I love about this is the masters say this. He said, we should all develop a consciousness that where everything happens to us is for our greater good. And he calls it, the masters call this, developing a consciousness of inverse paranoia. Isn't that great? And what is an inverse paranoia? It's a person who thinks that everyone, everything, and everything that's happening to us is for my greater good. That things don't happen to me, they happen for me. Isn't that cool? And this is how we can exercise that spiritual freedom that we talk about, that we have the right to be all that we can be every moment of the day and not be absorbed by what's going on. This state of mind is kind of interesting because what it requires, and Maggie and I talked about this when she was in India, and she was talking about the mind. But what it does, because if we need to think about it, the last time we were upset, the last time we thought we couldn't do something, the last time that we thought we weren't worthy, the last time somebody said something negative and we accepted it, what caused all that? It was our minds, our conditioned mind. Maggie and I talked about this. It was kind of interesting. And I told her, I said, that's part of my talk Sunday, baby, I think. But, so, what we're doing is trying to release the control that the mind has over us, controlling everything about us, limiting us, putting us in that place of being less than we can be. And so what we have to do is release that in some way. Reverend Marie used to say the committee in the head. You remember that, you guys? The committee head. But it's releasing that everything that happens to me, everything, regardless of whatever our perceptions are, is happening for me, not to me. Now, it's been said, and the great spiritual leaders tell us, that most of us don't discover our true potential during our lifetime. Maybe it takes several lifetimes. That 90% of the magnificence that we are not only goes untapped and unused, but tragically undiscovered. So being free to be all that we can be, what does it require? It's very personal, Angela. It is. Angela, you need to find out what this means. What does it mean to be all that I can be in the moment? And I like a spiritual teacher. His name is Osho. How many of you ever read Osho? How many of you ever read Osho? This guy's amazing. He calls this idea of the ultimate freedom. And what is the ultimate freedom? And what is it? The ultimate freedom is realizing that we are not our bodies. That's a freedom. The ultimate freedom is realizing we are not our minds. The ultimate freedom is that we're pure consciousness. And the ultimate freedom is that we can, and we do, we are eternal spiritual beings, that we create our life experiences, as Joan was saying. That we bring into our experience, and we are very creative. What I did, I looked at this French philosopher over the weekend, Rousseau. How many of you know Rousseau? He says everywhere men are born free, but everywhere he is, meaning women as well, and don't get carried away here, but everywhere he is, he's in chains. Interesting. I got to thinking about this. Hey, wait a minute. Angela, are you in chains? Because this is a personal thing. I can't tell you if you're in chains. I can only determine whether Angela's in chains or not. If after 230 years of that Declaration of Independence, I look at my life and I say, hey, wait, I'm in chains. That's ridiculous. And so we have to ask ourselves, do I dump the garbage of the past? You know, have I done that? Am I still carrying stuff with me after all my 39 years of experience? Am I carrying all that with me? Have I practiced forgiveness? Have I released all this stuff? I can only answer for Angelo. And I can tell you what Angelo's all about, this entity that we call Angelo, or Spirit calls Angelo. I know that Angelo wants to be all that he can be all of the time. That's what I want to do. I want to show my magnificence. A spiritual creative being that's unattached to the outcome. I want to show that all the time. To rise above any opinions otherwise. To release the conditioned mind that tells me otherwise. But it's not true all the time, is it? I was driving up Deadwood. A lot of my stories have to do with me being in the car. What does that say? But anyway, I'm driving up Deadwood. I'm going the speed limit. Cool. I look in the mirror. Here's this car that comes up right, almost smacks my rear end. And it's a couple kids. I see a couple kids in the car.